Welcome back to another episode of the MX Endurance Podcast, where we look at everything that's been happening in the world of endurance sports. My name is Tim Ford, and I'm joined by the penultimate legend, the sexiest voice in triathlon, James Bale Jimbo. I intentionally left out one of your nicknames because I had to explain it to about 20 people today who do not understand why I call you the sexy shepherdess. So I thought I would give you the opportunity to once and for all, on the record, explain to people the reason why you are referred to as the sexy shepherdess.
Why were you talking to 20 people about me?
You're extremely popular, and as the host of this podcast, people find
Yeah.
you live in your ivory tower. Obviously, you're too good for the people. I'm a man of the people. I'm amongst them. I live with them. I don't live with them. I live with my wife. But that's it, man. I'm more relatable and approachable. I'm the people's person.
Well, when I don't know whether it was last year or the year before, but we were reading a race result out, weren't we? And it was a race. It was a race report that had been translated by Google, I think, directly from French into English and put on the internet. Someone had just auto-translated it, and I was reading through it, and in French, the name Bergère, Leo Bergère, but Bergère specifically means shepherd, and so Google had translated it to shepherd. So I got to Leo Berger's name and just read it verbatim as Leo Shepherd. And Tim Hemming picked me up on it fairly swiftly because my brain was just in reading mode, so I wasn't. And ever since then, I am the
He
sexy
tweeted me up.
shepherdess.
He sent me a DM after the race, after that episode. And he goes, from now on, he goes, you know what you should do? You should call James Bale the sexy shepherdess. Ha ha ha. And I'm like, I'm going to do it. And he was like, yeah, sure. And so ever since, I have referred to you as the sexy shepherdess. So.
Every day, because he doubted you.
He doubted me.
You've done
Don't
it every day.
me.
This is the thing with this is even one thing I've learned with Tim Ford over the years is don't fuck with him, because if you say he's bold, he will spend 6 months of his life growing his hair just so that when you meet him in America, you can say, "Look, I've got hair," and then shave it off when he gets home.
Yeah, I am a little bit like that. Is a little bit vindictive. Is maybe the how you going, mate? Sorry for that whole long way of getting to how you going,
I'm not
mate?
too bad. I'm not too bad. It's we're getting into the meat of the summer now, aren't we? Well, winter for you, summer for me. It's probably still warmer there than it is here. And we've got races to talk about. We've got things happening. We've got adventures in the world of triathlon. So here we are to do it. How are you?
You hurt my
Mr.
heart,
Ford?
James. You hurt my heart just then because you made a comment that you probably thought was throwaway, but it is actually really upsetting to me. And that is, you said that it's probably warmer there than it is here. And James Bale, Jims, sexy shepherdess. Since I've gotten back from Europe, it has not stopped fucking raining.
No, you've got some quite serious floods, haven't you, in Sydney? Yeah.
Not where I am, thank God, and for everybody that's been affected, and my thoughts are with you. But I am actually depressed by the weather, like properly for the first time after having glorious, amazing European weather for a month. It's getting to me, mate. Like I literally today was like, can it just stop fucking raining?
Oh, mate, welcome to our every winter. You know, genuinely. I mean, we get preconditioned to be ready for those times in our lives when depression hits, because every year we spend about 6 to 7 months just, trudging through life, wondering why it's still raining. So welcome to that.
I got sick again too. That was the other just joyful thing. I thought I was done with this, and I got sick again after my flight. So I'm on the back end of it, but there was a few days this week it was bloody rough. But people don't care if I was sick. What they care about, James Bale, is that this podcast is the official podcast of MX Endurance, the world's premier endurance sports community, created by four-time world champion Chris McCormack. James Bale, you've been part of MX Endurance since before you complained about the weather. What's something you like about MX, mate?
I'm a giant fan of the support the community brings, because and it's not just support within the group, but it's support for athletes that we like and respect and follow. And there was a big race this last weekend, and there was a lot of chat in the MX group while it was happening and after it was happening, analysing the results and watching Frodeno and Lang and Ditlev do their thing, and looking at and how come through the field and take her win. It's just nice sometimes to know that you're part of a group of like-minded, interested people. And, there's a lot to talk about.
You talk about support, and there's actually a cool story that came out this week in the MX group that I think is worth sharing. I'd like to shout out a couple of members. So one of our, I'm worried I'm going to say the wrong nation. I think she's Canadian. She's North American members. Jill Chapman went to Roth to race, and her bike got like many athletes, her bike got lost in transit, so she got to Roth without a bike. And another one of our members, Simon Shurry, contacted Felix from Challenge, who helped organize a bike for Jill so she could do the race on Sunday. And again, I think that is just I was so proud, I guess is the word, to see the way that our network of athletes always goes above and beyond to help each other. And I think it's such a shining example of what MX is. Like, it is this idea that
Yeah, it's great to have that support network and people that are willing to just go beyond their own little bubble and know that they can help people out. And mate, there is a lot of bikes going missing at the moment. There are a
did
lot
you
of
see?
bikes going
I,
missing
s-
at the moment.
I saw a meme this week, and it was that the PTO Cup in Edmonton's been cancelled because Air Canada's lost all the bikes.
Yeah, I
They've
think
preemptively cancelled it.
I would be a bit wary at the moment of traveling on a plane. With all the cancellations, it's putting a real pressure on the industry, it seems. And it seems to be, from the outside looking in, a lot more bike related travel issues happening. And so I'm a big fan of my drive to Europe all the time rather than fly. It keeps me happy. My bike stays behind me and I know where it is.
And then it breaks on a downhill. James Bale, we have a lot of stuff to get through this week, including a bumper interview with the winner of Challenge Roth, Magnus Ditlev, who joins us for a great chat, talk through that race. But we'll get to that later because we're going to start with the first article now. Again, it's funny that this is actually news that I didn't realize, considering that I work for the company that put the race on, and that is the fact that Sub 7, Sub 8 project will be back and faster, says Chris McCormack. I got this from Sarah Wasner-Flynn at Triathlete Magazine. And it says, while this week's feature story on Sub 7, Sub 8 project in the New York Times did not offer much more news to anyone who closely followed the event, it did reveal that it was likely not a one and done deal. The piece mentions that race organisers, including two-time Ironman World Champion Chris McCormack, are aiming to stage an even faster race in 2024 and planning to repeat the Sub 7, Sub 8 every other year. McCormack said he's also interested in taking the boundary breaking approach to other sports too, and has been talking to winter sport athletes like snowboarders, ice skaters, and cross-country skiers as part of an exploratory investigation into what's next. Now, we obviously were there. We heard whispers that this was going to be coming back, but I did not realize it was looking to be an every other year sort of thing. And I like the idea that they're going to try to make this faster than it was this year. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think with the event having taken place and the stir it caused and it was, I think Sub 7, Sub 8 was one of those, it was a real example of something that was underappreciated and undernoticed all the way up until the very moment it was happening. And then the whole landscape went crazy for it because it was so well put on and so well produced. And the human effort going into creating that spectacle was so great that people were finding it very hard to look away. And I think off the back of that, it would be a foolish decision to not try and chase down that kind of experience again, amplify it, make it better, do it differently, because it's all well and good. You follow your sport, you watch your races every year, but sometimes something comes along where you see something go beyond what you normally expect.
Yeah.
And for me, as a cycling fan, that on that event, watching those team time trial teams do what they did for me was just so gripping and so enthralling. And other people would have got other little nuggets out of the race and just enjoyed the whole thing. I mean, I obviously enjoyed the whole thing, but there are just feats of human accomplishment sometimes that you just go, yeah, all right, we want to see that again. And you can see that across every sport.
Yeah, so I've been watching the broadcast on the trainer this week, and a really good example was today. I was like, I've watched like 3 hours of it at this point. I might watch something else today. So normally I watched as a video podcast, much like this video podcast. It's not this one. I don't watch myself that I normally watch when I train. And I got about 20 minutes when I thought I'm not feeling this. So I flicked it over back to the Sub 7 broadcast, and I think it's at like I literally watched Joe pass Christensen on the bike, and mate, the next 45 minutes of my bike ride were just like gone. I was so enthralled by the footage and the coverage and watching it. And yeah, you're right. Like, I think it's I'm very excited to see this come back. And I am curious to see how they take this concept to other sports, because I think it's a really cool, it's like the Lionel Hour record. That was something that I was not that interested in until it happened. I was like, this is fucking cool. And I'd love to see that. Like, that's another thing I'd love to see triathlon sort of roll. I still say, I reckon that'd be such a cool season opener where you get every new triathlete on their new time trial bike for the year, different velodromes around the world at the same time to all go for the hour and see where everyone's at. I think that'd be such a cool way to start the long course season or something. But yeah, what do
I
you
would love to
see?
get as fit as I can and do an hour's in a velodrome just to see how far I could go, simply to compare normal bloke against what the best in the world do. And
Yeah,
I'd love to.
you're
I'd love to do that.
obviously as the second biggest cycling fan that I know, behind myself, who is obviously the biggest cycling fan out there. I know this answer, of course, but just I always find that because as I said, you relate to the people. My knowledge is obviously off the scale, so people don't understand what I'm talking about half the time. Uh, as somebody people can relate to a little bit better, do you think that you would do a faster hour time on a velodrome or on a track like the Lausitz Ring where sub-7 was held?
Velodrome.
Okay.
Yeah. Simply because the conditions are absolutely stable in there. The Lausitz Ring's great, and I think it's fantastic for that sort of team time trial where you've got 9 riders, 10 riders working in unison. But I think the only reason, well, I say the only reason, but the reason that wouldn't work in a velodrome is because you had 4 teams of 10 riders going. It would just be an absolute cluster.
Yeah, they'd almost all be with each other all the time.
So. Yeah. So you couldn't do that. But if you put those 10 riders in a velodrome at altitude, let's say Ascos Calientes or something like that, where they do a lot of the hour records, which I'm assuming you know that.
Of course, it is known.
Then
everyone knows I know this. So.
Yeah, you'd see a much faster time on a velodrome, I think, because you'd have absolute control of the conditions and environment. You wouldn't have that bit where there's a headwind, there's a tailwind, possibility of rain, conditions changing, whatever. It's just
Thank you for enlightening. Again, I knew this, but it's good that you educated some of our listeners and viewers. So doing the
Campernuts
work,
holds the individual hour record at the moment at 55.089 kilometers.
It's very fast, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not too bad, is it? And
55 point what? Sorry,
55.089 kilometers.
And what was Joe's average speed? 55.9.
55.2. And so, if you think about, I mean, I know they did it over 3 hours 20, but that's one guy on his own for an hour going 55 kilometers an hour. It's a different kind of environment in a velodrome. But he did do it at altitude.
You're starting to sound like those people going, "Oh, it's not against the spirit of triathlon."
No, mate, I'm all on. I mean, you put a team of that. You put those 10 riders off Joe's team in the velodrome to do 112 kilometers. You're going to see a faster time than 3:16, whatever it was.
That's cool. I'd love to see that. I'd love to see that, actually.
Yeah, same. Velodromes. Have you ever been in a velodrome and watched somebody at pace going round and round and round? No,
never have.
It's a cool experience.
I should do it. I'd love to. I mean, I've obviously watched it. I watch a lot, but not in person. As the biggest fan, it's probably the one chink in my armor, mate. As the biggest cycling fan in the world, is that I've not been in a live velodrome. I love the track ride is always my favorite event. Is at the Olympics. Like I love watching it at the Olympics. It's so cool. Except for is it the Kieran? I mean, I obviously know it. Just the Kieran is that weird bike one where they have the guy on the weird little guy on the electric bike that does the first couple of laps, and it's so weird. It's such a weird
thing. It's a strange. The Kieran is a hard one to keep an eye on as a audience member, unless you really know what's happening. But Madison's interesting as well. But I mean, for me in the Olympics, it was always the individual pursuit. I love that, and they've got rid of it. And I still breaks my heart that they've got rid of it.
It does. Well, look, we could talk cycling forever, but we need to move on, mate, because this is already going to be a very long episode of the podcast, and we are about to go into the next piece of news this week. And this is quite a serious one. And I got this, not serious, it's something that I think I want to be thorough with. So I got this, Jonathan Turner at Tri 24/7 has put together this article, and I've taken out, I've tried not to take the entire thing because, as always, I encourage you guys to go to the website and support them, give them the clicks and everything. But I've taken a fair bit out, and I want to go through it because it's a topic that I think definitely needs to be discussed on the podcast, and it's going to affect people, and it's important to bring it up. And that is that British Triathlon's transgender policy has been revised, and it's a sport for everybody. So I'm going to do a bit of reading, Jimbo. So buckle in, mate. I'm going to try not to.
I'll just entertain myself for a minute because I know that you want to go through this. You want to make sure you don't miss anything on this because it's a very important topic. So I'll let you do your reading.
British Triathlon have announced an updated transgender policy following a period of consultation, and it sees triathlon become the first British sport to ban transgender athletes over the age of 12 from racing in the female category in competitive events at all levels. The extensive review came after the publication of the Sports Council's Equality Group (SCEG) guidance for domestic competition in September 2021 and the subsequent announcement by the IOC in November 2021. It aims to ensure that it reflects the needs of our sport, protects fairness in competition, and serves our desire to make triathlon truly inclusive. The statement reads, "Our policy outlines that triathlon is a sport for everyone and that transphobic behaviour will not be tolerated. Triathlon is a gender-affected sport, and so for competitive events, those races that have prizes, times, and/or rankings for athletes over the age of 12, there will be two categories: a female category for those who are the female sex at birth, and an open category for all individuals, including male, transgender, and those non-binary who are male sex at birth." CEO of British Triathlon Andy Salmon, telling a press briefing on Wednesday, said, "We'll now take time to develop guidance for event organisers, clubs, officials and coaches to share this autumn before the policy comes into effect from the 1st of January 2023. This guidance will support the implementation of this policy and serve to ensure that our sport continues to develop in being welcoming, supportive and inclusive for everyone." In more detail, he said, "Firstly, we believe transgender inclusion in sport is a very complex subject. It's a potentially polarizing issue, and we strongly encourage anybody who's commenting on the BTF policy or indeed the subject more generally to do so with real sensitivity, dignity, and respect. Secondly, we strongly believe that triathlon is a sport for everyone, and this belief runs through our thinking, the process that we've been through, and the policy. Thirdly, and this is very triathlon specific, our sport was founded relatively late in the 1970s with gender equity at its core. This is something that we're incredibly proud of, and indeed, we're incredibly precious about. And this is one of the reasons why fairness in our sport is so important to us." When asked about the possibility of World Triathlon or other sports and governing bodies establishing different policy, he said, "We've looked at what other sports are doing and have engaged with World Triathlon. However, the British Triathlon Board was resolute in its determination to establish a policy that is right for our sport, in Great Britain specifically. To this end, we took real cognizance of the outcomes from our consultation of just how important gender equity is in triathlon and in swim, bike, run. We felt it was really important to signal the new policy in advance of it becoming effective so that we can work with our many stakeholders to prepare them thoroughly for its implementation." And he said, "We make it clear that we'll continue to monitor this topic very closely and review the policy as new science is published. We've taken strong legal advice and we believe that policy is legally robust, and we recognise and acknowledge each individual's rights to define their own gender." James Bale.
Yeah, it's a big topic. It's a big
It's a
topic.
big topic.
And,
Big topic.
And it's one that seems to get people all riled up. And I don't mean the people it affects. I mean people outside of that who are just angry at it for no reason, or angry because they want to be angry. They want a reason to be angry and to hate different people and different minorities. So I think the first thing I've got to say is that I don't know enough about the science to have any sort of scientific understanding or to say, well, this is right or this is wrong. All I can really say on this is I hope they're making the right decision for everyone involved, and I hope that nobody is felt to be marginalized or not considered in the way that they want to be considered. That would be the most important thing for me, I think.
Yeah, I think, normally I'm like, mate, go out there and say stuff and but I genuinely think this is one that I think it is really important to admit I don't know enough about the science either to really say yes, no, whatever. I think one of the points they made is that they need, people talking about this need to be sensitive, and they need to, it is such a polarizing topic. And I think at the core, what this is about is giving people who want to participate in our sport a way in which they can hopefully safely do so. I think that's important. And like I said, it's a really tough topic. It's something that I think there's going to be people angry about this. There are going to be people who are very happy about this. All I hope is that the people who it actually directly affects, it means that they're still able to participate and enjoy this incredible sport that we all do.
And for those people it doesn't directly affect, raging at an issue is no way to when genuinely, other than people that are directly involved, not many of us know much about the science of this, and it's a new kind of narrative that we're dealing with. And just take a beat sometimes and think about the people it's affecting, and not just getting angry because you want to be angry at something.
And again, I would highly recommend you go to the Try 24/7 article this week. Read the whole thing. It's quite a long article. That's probably half of it. But yeah, it's worth noting. So we've gone through that, and we can move on to the next thing we want to talk about, because James, there was I don't know if you saw this on the weekend, but there was a pretty big triathlon happened in Germany. I'm not sure if you've heard
Yeah,
of
there
it. It's
was.
called Challenge Roth.
Yeah, there was a bit of a race, wasn't there? A bit of a race happened, mate. Bit of a
It's a
race
bit of a
happened,
race.
and it was good to be able to watch it because it wasn't in a time zone that meant I had to be up all night. So I had it playing as I went through my day on my phone in my pocket most of the time, just so I could hear it. And then if I thought something really interesting was happening, I'd stop what I was doing and have a look. And what a race it was, bro! What a race it was. Did you watch it all, or was it the wrong time of day for you?
I watched the entire thing, mate, from
Did you
start to
know?
finish. I did not
Well, there you
stop.
go.
I sat down and I watched the entire thing from the start of the swim all the way through to the end of it. It was
So what time did you? What time would that been to you? What time did you get to bed?
2:30 to 10:30, roughly. It was not the latest night. It
Oh,
was
okay, that's not too bad. That's not too
yeah,
bad.
2:30 start for me in the afternoon. So it was actually, I mean, I don't know if my wife was necessarily happy about spending all Sunday afternoon with a
No.
triathlon on the TV, but it was a race. So I've got a bit of a summary. So obviously we got Magnus coming on. Well, we've already interviewed him, but he'll be on a bit later. But I got this summary. I have failed to write down the source for it, and I think it was Triathlon Magazine Canada, but it's also it's a name I'm not familiar with, so it might not have been. So I apologize. It might have been 220 Triathlon. I can't remember, but it's Sarah Kimbona who has written the article. So I apologize. I have neglected to find the source here. But the 20th edition of Challenge Roth was a spectacular battle for both the 44 professional men and 15 professional women who took to the start line as part of the 5,450 total athletes in the event. The hot summer temperatures didn't keep the crowds away that make Roth the race it is every year, and the professionals put on a show with record-breaking performances. We'll go through the women's race first, mate. In the women's race, it was Rebecca Clark from New Zealand who kicked off the non-wetsuit swim with an aggressive pace that only Langridge could match. Although the two were not in contact the entire swim, they passed a group of pro men and came out of the water seconds apart, Langridge just in front. Haug, meanwhile, sat in the chase pack, drafting off Maya Stag Nielsen and Judith Corican, exiting the swim fifth with a time of 58:46. So she was like, what, 6 or 7 minutes back? I think they swam like 51.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? I think. I can't remember. While Haug added time to her swim deficit by grabbing the wrong transition bag, Langridge was already on the road, growing a dominant lead that she would maintain for the duration of the bike. Haug, meanwhile, was focused on the chase, and just after the 70k mark, rode herself in a second. Clark was quickly left behind by Haug and eventually caught by the chase pack of Cochrane, Laura Siddle, Elisabetta Curido, and Magna Newart and Stage Nielsen. With a bike split of 4:35.51, Langridge came in a T2 with a 5-minute 18 lead. Haug, who clocked the second fastest bike split in Roth history with a time of 4:33.45. Now, after 11 kilometers, the gap had been halved, and by the end of the canal, Haug made the pass. Haug, despite having to cope with a bee sting on her head that she obtained during the bike, looked comfortable and strong as she grew her lead, eventually running down the green carpet to take the win with a lead of over 10 minutes. She said, I really had to fight today. I didn't have the swim I would have wished for, and it put me in a position where I had to push on the bike. Then the run was really hard. I calculate I could catch her at the half marathon. Then you go in the lead, and mentally it's harder than you're chasing. So I'm super happy to see the finish line. I'm super happy with my performance. It was everything I had today. So in first place, Anne Haug, 8:22.42. Second place, Fenella Langridge, 8:31.41. Third place, Judith Corican in 8:46.29. James Bell, what did you think about this women's race?
Yeah, I thought it was cool. I it was really nice to see Fenella Langridge being at the front and taking the lead and getting out on the bike. And but Anna Haug, mate, you know you can't you just can't emphasize enough how strong and powerful that run is. Because making the pass when she did and then putting that sort of time into Fenella, it's metronomic, isn't it? I mean, what a performance.
I think there's a lot to take away from this. Firstly, I was a bit shocked when I saw how far back out of the swim and Haug was. I was like, what the hell? Like, it was like, yeah, 6 or 7 minutes. Like, it was a significant gap. But then, mate, the fact that she rode literally the second fastest bike split in the history of the race, and then is the runner that she is, like, I think this is showing a lot of what she's capable of and why I think she's going to be a serious contender in Kona later this year. Like I think Annie Haug is, and this is what
Oh
not that
yeah,
long ago since I'm like genuinely excited to see what I thought she was going to go under the 818 of Chrissy Wellington. I think I made that call last week, and I think if you
yeah,
take out the factor that really off swim that she had,
yeah. I was going to
the
say
bike and
that.
run performance were there. So
Yeah, totally. It was the swim that dictated that. But I mean, winning by almost 10 minutes.
I know, mate. And
You know,
like the only person who rode faster than her is Daniela Reef, and it wasn't
yeah,
that big a gap, I think. And you think that we're so used to seeing Anne Haug sort of have to run through and chase down. Like, I think if she's got this sort of bike power at the moment, she takes that to Roth, and she gets out of the water not too far back. There's no Lucy Charles in Kona this year, so there's not going to be that huge gap to the who they chase. I think we could see Annie Haug do some. We could imagine a run battle between Anne Haug and Daniela Reef
yeah,
on the lava field. That would be
yeah. Throw
something,
Cat
mate. Hey,
throw Cat Matthews in there as well, and you got yourself a game, as they say.
yeah, man. And how I mean, we saw her. She didn't have the best run in St George, but this Kona, she's a proven winner in Kona. So, yeah, great race again. Watching Fenella Langridge ride up that Solarberg hill and just like actually loving it, I thought it was a pretty cool moment, and I think it shows the power of that course and the everything about it. So that was a really good moment. On the men's race, do you want to go through the men's race, mate? I've done a lot of reading this episode. Do you want to go through that?
Yeah, no worries. So on the men's side, Jan Frodeno was leading out the swim early. It was only Maurice Clavel who could match the pace, but it was Frodo who was out first out of the water with a time of 48:47. The chase group, led by Thomas Davis, held all the rest of the big players, including Patrick Lang, Rinaldo Cucci, Magnus Ditlev, just under 90 seconds back. American favourite Sam Long was in the following pack, finishing the swim in 13th, 6 minutes 35 back. It was Ditlev that moved fast from the chase back once he was on the bike, making contact with the race leaders within the first 20 kilometres. A front group was formed that included Ditlev, Frodeno, Clavel, Robert Callin, and Rinaldo Cucci. The group would remain intact until Cucci dropped off after the lap 1, and Clavel dangled just off the back after the 45-kilometre mark. Shortly after, Frodeno moved to the front and pushed the pace that only Ditlev could handle. The two forced a gap of 150 and came into T2 only 6 seconds apart, with Ditlev's bike split setting a new record of 4:01.56. Behind the leaders, Lang and Brad Weiss were over 11 minutes behind, and Long just a minute behind them. It looked like a battle with a Frodeno fairy tale ending was about to unfold, but less than 10 kilometres into the marathon, Frodeno would abandon the race in pain from his Achilles, but not
3
before
kilometers.
giving Ditlev a high five despite hot temperatures. Ditlev would only enhance his lead throughout the run, clocking a 2:40.22 marathon to eventually take the win with a time of 7:35.48, just 9 seconds off Frodeno's course record. So the finishing positions were as follows: Magnus Ditlev in 7:35.48, Patrick Lang in 7:44.52, Ronaldo Colucci in 7:52.36.
Mate, this men's race was something. Hey, this was pretty epic, to be honest. And I think watching Frodo out there, I thought, oh, here we go. Frodo's back, baby. This is what we're going to see. And, took out the swim, non-wetsuit to go the way he did. And at first I thought, like, watching the swim, I was like, is that Patrick Lang on his feet? Like, what's going on here? We seen, something was sort of unexpected. And then him and Clavel got out of the water and sort of were doing their thing. And next minute, Magnus Ditlev is just there. He's just with them on the bike. And then I think Magnus raced a very smart bike league. We'll hear later what actually, what the reasoning behind that was. But to see him sort of just race his race and then, him and Frodo get that lead, it was awesome, mate. And again, Magnus' second ever race.
We say it in the interview, but you could kind of see when Frodo started that run that he was a bit clunched up and a little bit. He wasn't his normal fluid self, so it wasn't a surprise, I don't think, when he pulled the pin. But it's a shame because I know that Frodo's a great athlete, and he's we're both fans. But it's also a shame because Magnus was up for that fight, wasn't he?
I wanted to talk a little bit about Sam Long because Sam obviously came out early this year and said that Roth is his big race for the year. He's choosing not to race Kona. He's prioritizing Roth. And I think I said it last week that I've always seen Sam as a little bit. There's always been a bit of a question mark for me over Sam Long's Ironman distance racing because on paper he's got it, mate. Like he's a incredibly strong athlete. But like when I saw he was so far back out of the swim. Like I was shocked. I was genuinely shocked by his swim. And then to see him sort of, because I think he caught up to maybe caught up to Lang on the bike, and then he got off the bike just before Lang with Bradley Weiss, but just sort of just fell apart on the run. I think he wasn't really in it that much. He was 8:07, I think he went. But like I saw he did a video afterwards, and what I love about Sam Long is he really does wear his heart on his sleeve, and he was like, I'm as confused as everybody is. Like on paper, I should be able to do this, and I just don't understand why I can't. Like I said, Sam's such a great athlete, and it's always really disappointing to see him just like not feature. One of the things I was quite excited to see was to see the impact that Sam Long had on a race like this, and he didn't. And it was sort of, that was one of the real like anticlimactic parts of it for me, is we just didn't really see Sam feature much. I saw him for like a couple of moments as he caught up to Langer just before the dismount. That was about it. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a shame because he's a big name, and the fact that he'd said that this was going to be the race of his year, it's a shame to see that come and go without much of a blip on the results sheet. I'm sure he can regather himself and refocus on something else for the rest of the year. I don't think just because he said that Roth was going to be his one, it doesn't mean that it's not the last we've seen of Sam Long this year. But yeah, you're right. It's disappointing when he doesn't fire.
Well, look, we sat down with Magnus to go through the race with him. So you can, instead of us talking about what Magnus did, you can hear it from Magnus Ditlev about exactly how his race unfolded. So we'll drop the interview in and we'll be back afterwards.
And we are very lucky this week to be joined by the one, the only, the winner, and some would say surprise, but one podcaster wouldn't say surprise winner because he called it, and he called it in the fashion it happened. The winner of Challenge Roth this weekend gone, Magnus Ditlev. Magnus, how are you feeling, mate? Are you recovered? How are your legs? Are you still limping along a little bit? Or you got any DOMs? What's the crap?
Thanks for the introduction, James. It's I still really, to be honest, can't believe what happened during the weekend. Definitely still a little bit sore, but it's actually more like the mind and the head that there's been a lot of impressions after the race. So I'm still trying to get down to a more normal energy level.
Now, can I ask, Magnus, because I know that at the start of this year, the conversation this year was, it was very much about 70.3 and your coach, and you just sort of decided we'll give Ironman Texas a go and sort of see how it goes. And here we are it's July now, and you second on debut with a 9-minute mechanical problem, running a 2:40 on debut, going sub-8 on debut. And here we are, Challenge Roth. Like, is it fair to say that your plans for this year have shifted somewhat since the start of the year?
Yeah, definitely. I think we went into the year thinking that, it would be cool to do an Ironman just to see if if it was something for me, and if I was still, I have my normal training age is quite young, but we have seen and from training that I should be able to do a pretty good Ironman, but still we were very unsure, and now we're here, and it seems that Ironman is by far the best distance for me, and I wouldn't have imagined that before this year, but yeah.
In terms of enjoying a race experience, outside of the victories or the actual result of it, enjoying being part of a process of being a 70.3 or an Ironman, which do you enjoy most?
Oh, it's difficult to pick one, I think. For me, actually, the Ironman distance and the Ironman training was fitting quite nicely, with the 70.3 focus we wanted to do, because in a 70.3 we've always found that it's not my high-end power that if I was supposed to do a 20-minute all-out effort on the bike, I can produce some numbers that are extremely high, but I have never been able to, in a 70.3, ride at a very high percentage of that 20-minute power. So either way, we wanted to do an big endurance block, which fits perfectly for Ironman also, and so the training hasn't been very different to what we wanted to do actually. But for the racing, they're just two completely different things. But what I like about the Ironman distance in particular is that I'm a quite geeky guy, and I like to go into every detail. And for instance, just the nutrition aspects of an Ironman is so complicated, and all the heat acclimatization we've done, we went into Texas with, and also some of it we used for Roth. It has been a really cool process for me. So I think there are a lot of course, you can also do, but nutrition, for instance, is just so much more important on an Ironman.
I think if we had have asked you this question maybe after Texas, because that finish, you didn't look quite as happy finishing Texas as you did at Roth. I think you looked like you'd been through the ringer a little bit for those last few hundred meters when Ben Hoffman sort of sprinted away from you. But I think because you've won Roth by 10 minutes or something, it's probably you've got rose tinted glasses a little bit, mate, because you made Roth look easy. Like watching you out there, at no point during that run you looked cool, comfortable, calm, and collected the entire time. And I don't know whether you just got the best poker face in triathlon or if it really was just a really well measured and paced run.
Yeah, well, I mean, actually, I was very happy after Texas, even though I didn't win. The main thing for me was to see if I would be competitive in a strong field, and I definitely proved that I was that. And regarding the the poker face, then it's funny because after Jan pulled out during the run, it was extremely difficult for me, like mentally, even though I knew I probably would win if I just didn't get an injury or had to walk. But still, your brain is trying to convince you that, like for instance, after 35 minutes, there is a turnaround point.
Hang on a second, boys. We started at the run. We can't start at the run. That's the end of the story. Go back to the start of the race. Let's talk about pre-race. What were you thinking going in? What were your objectives going in?
Oh, I mean, to be honest, after Texas, like the period after Texas has been a very stressful period for me. I was very unsure about my shape, and it's because after Texas, my coach and I made, maybe it sounds a bit arrogant or something like that, but we made, like, on the plane back to Denmark, we made a list of things I had to do if I wanted to be able to win Ironman Kona. And so the first thing I did when I got home to Copenhagen was started working on basically all the different projects we had on that list, because we thought that it would be much better to just get working far away from the event, so that when the training towards Kona really starts to get tough, I can focus only on the training. So I've been having so many different projects going on, and it has been quite difficult to focus on the training in this period. So sometimes I had to compromise quite a lot on the training leading in to Roth. And I've been sleeping in an altitude tent, and for the last 5 days of the 1 week before Roth, suddenly Denmark decided to have 30 degrees. And when you're sleeping in a tent, I had a temperature it was more than 30 degrees inside the tent when I was sleeping.
That's that heat acclimation training you're talking about, isn't it? That's the secret.
So actually 1 week before the event, I had an easy run, just 1 hour easy. And I was so tired, I almost had to walk the whole, so I've been so stressful going into the event and unsure about my shape. But then when I came to Roth, it was just, I got to be at a homestay for the first time, and they were so welcome, and everything just started to, I relaxed much more, and training getting fresher and fresher, and suddenly I was feeling better and better each day. So that was giving me some hope that I would still be able to deliver a good performance, even though I hadn't been as my training had still been going really well. It's just normally I have a very big I complete the sessions with a very good feeling. This time it was more like I did the sessions and some of them were good, so a lot of them were also just average, maybe not even that good.
You spoke about the heat wave in Denmark, because I was there and I was in Denmark. I raced Elsinore, and one thing I noticed in my hotel in Elsinore is that there was no air conditioning or no fan in the room that I was sleeping in. And you bloody Scandinavians are not, your lodgings are not built for warmer weather, because it was a sweat box. I was like, this is like, it's a fan. What's going on? Why is it? And Desi's like, yeah, it's Scandinavia. It's cold for 9 months of the year. I went, yeah, that'll do it myself. I get it.
And then imagine if you're inside one of those rooms, you place a big tent.
I'm going to do it next time. This is the Magnus Ditlev secret.
Then you will not be able to sleep very well.
So going into
Now,
the race, mate, everyone was talking about Lang and Frodo. Did you, in your mind, um, were you in that conversation in your head, or were you thinking, right, well, that's going to be the race, and I'll see what happens to me on the day, and on my day, something could happen?
Well, I think I don't toe the line anymore to not compete for the win. Like it's even sometimes before I had proven anything, I still believed I could win. So, but it's not like I toe the line knowing that I'm not arrogant about it, or I just know that if everything falls into place and I have a good swim and stuff like that, then I should be able to be like all the data we have from the training. Then I know I will be able to be in the mix for the win. But I also know that it will be extremely difficult to execute across all three disciplines.
I did love that one of the things you did message us was like when it was confirmed, because there were sort of whispers that Frodeno was going to be racing, and we were sort of like, is it true? Is it not true? And when it was confirmed, like you were genuinely excited. Like, and I think that that's something that I mean, both myself and James we speak about a lot, is that we love to see athletes who are not going Frodo's in, we can't win. Like what I love about your approach was like you're like Frodo's racing, yes, I get to race Jan, and like I can try to beat him. Like what explain that to us, because is it just like so many athletes who've been out there before would literally just go, well, can't do it. Like what is it about your, like is it just your mindset that you like, because I think it's fantastic. So talk us a little bit about that, the excitement about getting a race for Dino.
Yeah, it's definitely a mindset set thing, and I know what I'm able to do in training, and I have the numbers to really put in a good performance. And then I think from a big motivation for me is also to go in a like if it was easy, then everyone would like do it, and it wouldn't be as satisfying when you win a race. If it was easy, then and it's just so motivating for me to get to race. When I started triathlon, Jan was like he had already won Hawaii a few times almost, and he's a guy I've looked up to so many times. So it's just a huge privilege for me to get to race him and actually having a chance to go head to head with him. And then I must say, on the when he had to pull out on the run, of course I was happy because I knew I would most likely have the win, but it was also a huge bummer for me because we were basically he had a little bit faster transition than me, so but I was slowly catching up to him, and I had really been looking forward to have a battle with him on the run.
So
Well,
you came
let's
out.
talk about the race.
Well,
I think
yeah.
go on,
Well,
James.
we're talking over each other, mate. So you come out of the swim. How was the swim? And you weren't as far behind as people had expected coming out of the water. What was that like?
Yeah, I definitely had a really good swim of like the two races I've done previously this year in Miami and Texas haven't really, I think, reflected my true swim level. Also, just earlier last year, if you look at my swimming level in the pool, it's actually quite high. But I've never really been able to convert it into a good performance in the open waters, like races. But this time I had a really good start. And in Roth, there's basically 1 kilometer straight before you even do a turn. And I think that plays into my favor also because there's more time. Sometimes when there is a buoy after a few hundred meters, it's more of a lottery where you end up around the buoy and a lot of fighting. And I'm not really experienced in all those mass starts with a lot of fighting. So this time I just got a really good start and found the right feed. I could see the lead kayak the whole way. Knew I was on exactly where I had to be, and then it's weird with the swim because then when you finally hit the pack, then it's so easy to stay there. So I had but when you are swimming alone or in a very small pack, and it's much more hard, like much harder. But this time I was actually in control the whole way and just tried to save as much energy as possible, making sure I was thinking through the first transition. So
Can I ask Magnus, because again I think one of the unique features of Roth as a race is obviously the crowds, and watching
Yeah.
it on the broadcast, it wasn't just Solerberg Hill or the run course that was packed. The swim had so many people. Like, were you aware of that when you were like, could you hear them, could you see them, or was it all just about what was happening in the water?
Yeah, I must say it's the most crazy race I've ever done with regards to like crowd support. Even as you say, during the swim, it's along like the channel, and I could basically hear people screaming and yelling, and sometimes my name I could hear, and clapping, and people were walking with the group we were
Yeah.
where we were swimming. So I just got to look at the same faces the whole swim. Every time I was briefing, I could see
Did
people
you wave to them a
clapping.
little bit while you're swimming, give
Yeah.
them a little?
It's like the first time I've done a swim where I felt I had the support of the crowd. Normally, you just go to 1.5 kilometers out in the ocean and then turn around and go back. So that was really unique to this event also.
So you came out of the water, and people were expecting it to be a little bit of time before you bike back up. But there was surprise in the commentary and on the internet generally that you'd caught the pack so quickly, and you were working at the front. Was that a decision of yours to just power up, or were you just staying within yourself and you happened to catch people?
No, I mean my plan beforehand was a little bit dynamic depending on the scenario from the swim. And this time I got some splits from my coach and father and best friend that I was 1 minute and 15 or something behind Frodo out of the water, and then I just like it was game on for me. I
Rip
just
it.
decided, yeah. Basically, I wrote
That 20-minute
more,
power you spoke about earlier.
yeah, yeah, more actually. I wrote more power than I would in a 70.3 for the first 30 or 40 minutes just
Wow.
to bridge up. And also it was because Patrick was in the group I was swimming with, and I could see he tried to hang on to my wheel on the bike, so I didn't want to bring him up to the front. That would both be a huge disadvantage for me, but also I knew Frodo would probably not be very
Is
happy
there
about that.
is there an element of mind games where you go, Patrick, I'm going to go, mate, just jump on my wheel and we'll go together, and then you just drop him like a bad habit? Is there something like that?
I must say he was with me for a few kilometers on the flat, but
Yep.
then we hit a hill and he was with me
Gone.
on the hill. But then I actually normally it's my way of maybe I shouldn't say it, but you do the hill and people can ride really hard up a hill, but it's on the top of the hill.
Yeah.
If you just keep pushing on the top,
Yeah.
going downhill also a little bit, then people start falling off. So that
Yeah.
was how I think I got rid of Patrick.
Well, that's interesting to hear you say that, because one of the things I noticed watching Patrick's race was that he did seem to be isolated from almost the entirety of the bike until Bradley Weiss caught up to him. He was very much in no man's land by himself, and I guess
Mm.
that's possibly what happened. Is he got that toe with you for a bit, got ahead of that group behind him, and then sort of just stayed in that middle land and just lost buckets of time to you guys up ahead of up the road of him. So once you got up to Frodo, it was then what I think is very, I guess, really strategic of you, is that you sort of did you let the pack do the work, and you didn't, you were at the front at times, and then you sort of just you sort of you did your thing with the group. Was that a decision, or were they just riding
Yeah,
a pace you're happy with?
Yeah, so I was extremely worried because I looked at my bike computer and I saw numbers I wouldn't produce in a 70.3. So, and since it's my only second iron full distance, I was thinking, okay, now you really have to be careful because I might have just spoiled my whole run. But the whole, like all the time, I felt so much in control, even though I was pushing those power numbers. And so I went, yeah, I was riding in behind in the group, and then I knew that at 45 kilometer mark around there would be a hill around 8 minutes or something like that, where I really tried to put in a huge surge, and actually I got a little bit of a gap on the other guys from the group, but then on the downhill they managed to close it. It's yeah, and then I basically from there on I knew it would be extremely difficult to ride solo and get away. So I decided to stay in the group and not do as much work as I normally do. And the guys, Frodo was pushing really hard, and also Robert Callin and Maurice Clavel were riding so well. So, and I knew I would probably be able to run comfortably from like faster than at least Clavel and Robert Callin. And also had seen on the running times Frodo has posted earlier that he's only once before like done a sub 240.
238 when he broke
So
the record, I think. So
yeah, that
yeah,
was I think that's just one or two times he's gone sub
yeah,
240. So and I
exactly.
knew he had been injured beforehand. So
Mm.
even though it wasn't like for sure I would go have the win with entering T2 with Frodo, I was still hopeful that I would be in the mix.
So you entered T2 with Frodo. He couldn't find his bag. And I was going, go Magnus, go Magnus, go Magnus, go Magnus. But you fucked about, mate, putting your socks on and stuff. And then he got out before you. What was that
Yeah,
dynamic like as you went through T2?
well, it's because he actually because he had the time in T1, then he put on socks already in T1,
Yeah, I saw that.
aero socks. So
Very high.
he didn't have to do that in T2. So even though I entered the changing 10 first, then he just had to put on his shoes and he was away. So
Yeah.
that was a little bit stressful because I had been imagining that we were like going out together, and suddenly I had to close maybe 100-meter gap. So,
Can just before one of the just you mentioned the stressful thing and something that just triggered a thought. Like watching the race, one of the things I found quite stressful was watching you guys on the second lap of the bike course with all the
yeah.
age groupers out there. What was that experience like? And then on the back of that, I also want you to tell me what it was like going up Solerberg Hill for the first time.
Yeah, I didn't actually know that there would be so much traffic on the second loop, so I was quite surprised, and it created some quite dangerous situations at time because a lot of the route is a little bit technical, going through small towns and stuff like that, and accelerating out of corners and stuff. And sometimes when people see Frodo, they try to go with
Yeah,
him,
I saw that. I saw
and
that a lot
and
on the broadcast.
and I'm the one that is actually going with him, and then it creates yeah, it just messes things up a little bit. So also, yeah, it was a little bit annoying. Sometimes we had to go in the wrong side of the road, and yeah, but we all got through safely. And then going up actually it was especially going up the Solarberg the first time it was the craziest experience for me on a bike I've ever had. Like
Yeah.
it was so I for 2 minutes afterwards I couldn't hear what was going on because my brain and my ears was just screaming. And then second time it was more annoying because Jan was leading, and in between him and I there was an age grouper, and there was not space for me to pass the age grouper going up the hill because
Yeah.
people were standing so close. So I had to really almost push the people to the side of the road to make sure, otherwise he would gap me because the age grouper wasn't riding as fast as Jan was. So it was also things
So
was just a little bit
did you get
stressful
round?
out on
Did
the
you get
bike.
round the age grouper in the end or not?
Yeah, I managed to get round, but people were touching my hands and my arms, and I was so close to crashing. It was,
Yeah,
it was,
you don't
and
need
it,
it, do
I
you?
mean, no,
Now
and that
watching it,
was,
watching it gave me goosebumps. It looks like the look
yeah,
of I think there was footage on the broadcast of Sam Long going up the hill, and he had just had the biggest smile on his face. I was like, wow, like it was yeah, it was
yeah,
intense.
it was really. They say it's the biggest one-day sporting event in the world, and there
Yeah,
were more than 200,000 people watching out on the course. So it's completely nuts. Like,
saw the Magnus Ditlev show.
yeah.
So
Well,
then
then the run.
you get onto the run, mate. You're running along. How are you feeling? This is before you know Jan's pulled out. Are you feeling in yourself that there's going to be a battle? Because I mean, looking at you, you're so big. You look like you're running my pace, and then you're not. You're running
Yeah.
at 240. So
Well,
what are you feeling
it's
like? Right, I'm going to have a fight here.
I knew I would try to like give my right arm to go to the wire with him, but I was also one of the things we wanted to test here in Roth was that we were a little bit unsure about the run in Texas because I had the 8 minute, 9 minute break just
Yep,
before T2,
yep.
and we were maybe thinking it would affect the run. So there was a little bit of an uncertainty for me, but and when I started running, I felt not as strong as I did in Texas immediately. But once we got like 1K into the run, I really started feeling good again. And then it was basically, I was just running, thinking the only thing I was looking at was Frodo's back. and then he pulled out the side of the road, and I almost ran directly into him because I was only focused on that. So yeah.
So at that point, when he pulled out, you're a bit disappointed because you're hoping for a shoulder to shoulder battle with him. Did you know the gap to second place at that point? And did it dawn on
Not
you that, look, I've got a real chance to take this?
not exact. I knew the gap to Robert and Maurice, who were second and third then, but I didn't know that Patrick was so far behind. But I pretty like I had people out on the course that said that he was 13 minutes behind. So then I knew that I just had to make sure I didn't make any nutritional cooling or anything else errors. That so it was more. It
Yeah,
was
bonking to
actually
a
quite
walk was your
hard.
enemy at that point, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and making sure to keep spirits high, even though it might sound weird that it's hard to lead a race like that, but it's difficult to have some like when I was running behind Jan, I was so laser focused on only that, and then suddenly you have everything in front of you, and you have 40 kilometers to run, and it's a little bit difficult to find out then you have to find some completely different motivation things for yourself.
Where did you find that?
Yeah, it's I've been through some tough times a few years ago where I was hit by a car and stuff like that, and I actually thought about that for some of the time, thinking how lucky I was just to be in this position. And I knew how many, also I wouldn't call it sacrifices, but how many people are actually supporting me, and my best friend and coach and father, they took, even though they were had to work the day after that, they took the drive from Denmark 12 hours, arrived late at night, and then went directly home. So it was also just thinking about many of the people supporting me, and thinking about the situation I was in was even though it was hard to believe that it was actually happening.
Now, you obviously, once Frodo's out, it's apparent that it's all about Patrick Lang. Patrick Lang, we know that he
Yeah.
is one of the best runners in the sport. I think he ran course record run on Sunday. It became, and even watching it, knowing that you had all this time, there was still this like it's Patrick Lang. Like it's almost like myself watching. I couldn't relax knowing that Patrick Lang is potentially running you down. At what point did you think I think I've got him covered, or was it always like yourself? Are you always going shit? It's bloody Patrick Lang, 2-time Ironman. This guy can run like the clappers. Like, what was psychologically? What was it like being chased by Patrick Lang?
Yeah, it was
Said Patrick Lang a
very
lot there, mate.
Yeah, I did.
it was difficult because one of the things I do quite often when I'm running like that is to do some math in my head. And even at there was what I was trying to tell earlier, even at a turnaround point at 35 kilometers, I took a split on my watch, and I could see I had more than 10 minutes. And then I did the math and said, okay, he has to run 2 minutes per kilometer quicker than me, but still your head is trying to say that he's coming for you. So it's but that was probably the first time where I really, okay, now, and I knew the last part was going downhill, so I knew after that split that now it's just about enjoying the atmosphere and yeah, soaking it all in.
So Tim said that for the rest of the race it was about Patrick Lang, but as a viewer at the time watching, there was a point in that run where it didn't become about Patrick anymore. It became about Frodeno's record. Did you know how close
Yeah.
you were to that time?
I knew when I ran through the town after probably 30 kilometers or something like that, people were talking. Now the speaker was saying something in German, and I understand a little bit German from school, and I could hear something about Frodo and record and stuff like that. So I asked my coach when next time I saw him, is it true that I'm actually, because I didn't know, like when you're swimming, you have no idea what the swim time is, and I knew I was going fast on the bike, but I still didn't really know how the overall time is. So I asked him, "Is it true that I'm actually on the track for a world record?" And he said, "Yeah, you're very close to it, but I didn't. I went by quite fast, so I didn't know exactly how close." And then at the end, it was like I wasn't actually focusing a lot, because I think if I had known I was within 9 seconds, I probably could just have skipped walking the stadium, and then I would have had it. But
That was me
I
screaming at
basically
the screen, mate, going, "Don't
Yeah,
walk,
yeah.
go, come on, go, mate, go, go."
yeah,
Does
I
that matter to you now, though? Is it
no,
just like,
not
well,
really,
these
not
things
no.
opportunities will come again for stuff like that? I've won Roth.
Yeah, it's hard to. The route was like the course was a little bit different when he did it, and this time was without wetsuit, and Jan went with a wetsuit. So I believe already with the wetsuit thing, it's 3 minutes maybe, and so it's just extremely difficult to compare times.
Talk about the finish experience, mate. We know that they've got this the man-made the built stadium that they put in. You know, you go in, there's the crowd all around you. You do the U-turn, you come back. What was that finish experience like, knowing that you're about to win Challenge Roth?
Yeah, it actually it wasn't. I feel like I was basically just running and not uh, believing it happened. So it's mostly afterwards. But when I look at the pictures, it's just I get so many emotions from it. But in the moment, I was too overwhelmed to actually feel a lot of deep thoughts. I think so. But it
And
was just
you are
yeah.
terrible at pouring beer on your head.
You are. You're really
Like,
bad.
Yeah, but actually, it's funny because afterwards I've spoken to some people, and it's actually a thing that
Yeah,
I
I saw
think
this too. Yeah.
the only there has been one other Dane that has won Challenge Roth before, and he did the exact same thing. And then at the after party, I like vanilla language came to me and asked and said that when she did she did the exact same thing last year, and Laura Siddle did the same thing also. So I
Yeah.
think it's something with the glass that is bigger than you anticipate when you're pouring it over.
I did see after, because it looked like you did look like, obviously you've just done the second fastest time at Challenge Roth, and it did look like you were maybe not, you were a bit overwhelmed. It looked like Felix was literally saying to you, "Mate, tip this bloody beer over your head." Was that what because was that what he was whispering at you?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I didn't know. I thought I was maybe going to drink it all, but and then that wouldn't be pretty. So yeah.
No, it was amazing, man. Like, I think, it yeah, it was great to see. What do you think, for you as an athlete, winning this race, your second iron distance race, winning Challenger Roth, one of the biggest races in the world? What do you think it does for you? What does that result give you? Like, what sort of confidence does it give you? What does it tell you about yourself as an athlete?
Well, obviously there is a lot of like opportunities opening now for me, but just it's the most important thing I think is personally it shows that the work we are doing is definitely we are on the right track. I've always had extremely high ambitions even before I had proven anything. So now I think it's a motivation, big motivation for me to go all in for Ironman Hawaii, and then we'll see what happens there. But for now, I think I'll just have to enjoy it, and yeah.
Did you get a chance to talk to Frodo after the race?
Yeah, I did actually. There was they call it a volunteer party at the Monday evening, where he came and he sat down beside me, and we talked for basically 1.5 hours or something like that.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool too.
You
To
said,
have
"Watch out,
your
mate. I'm coming for you in Kona,
yeah
man. I've got your
yeah
number."
yeah. So it
I
would be
mean,
awesome.
one of the other with success comes expectation, and suddenly means that people are going to be marking you as a person that they have to factor into their race strategies. Do you think that this result in Roth is going to, like, after Texas, you obviously had, it was a great debut, but it wasn't Christian doing
Mm.
7:21 on debut. You've done this now. You've done almost the same time as Frodo. Do you think suddenly you're going into Kona with a bit of are people going to be watching what you're doing and maybe changing the way they race or coming up with strategies to deal with you in Kona?
Yeah, I can already see people are starting to speculate about how I'll do in Kona, which is pretty surreal, to be honest. And for me, I think it's important to focus on my own development. And I like if people plan to react to the way I race, I think it's a very difficult thing for them to do because if I had been like if my strength was swim and then run to 36 or something like that, it would be maybe a little bit more okay, now we know what he's going to do. But I think it's extremely difficult for people to plan to follow me on the bike. Like, it's, if you have the legs, then they are able to do it, but it's not something they can expect to be able to follow me. So
Do you think obviously we've seen what Christian and Gustav are capable of. We know that there's a lot of talk about them going into Kona as the potential favorites. With the bike that you have and the fact that you are, you're maybe not the front swimmer, but you're not far off. Do you think that there is power in getting a group of you guys together and saying we need to put 20 minutes into these guys? Like, we need to literally do something to make they can run a 2:30 if they like, but it's not going to matter. Like, do you think there's value in doing something like that on a course like Kona?
yeah, I've already actually had some thoughts about, because I think it's important for people to realize how different Roth and Kona are in the dynamics that's going to happen on the bike. So in Kona, I believe I should probably have the best swim of my life if I'm in front of Christian and Gustav from the, like, after the swim. And then there will be a scenario where I'm going to have to overtake them on the bike and not bringing them up to the front pack, because if I do that, it's basically a runner's race, and that's going to be probably the decisive moment for my race. If I'm able to, like, one, first close the gap, and two, if I'm able to get them on the bike. But because if they just, or not just, but if they are able to follow me on the bike, then it's going to be a runner's race, and maybe they will have used a little bit more energy, but I still think they are able to run extremely fast with a hard bike. So it's going to be interesting to, or a way, I need to find a like a strategy to
Well, you
get
need
them
to.
on the bike.
We are the triathlon podcast, mate. It's time to start making allies. Call out. Who do you want to have go with you? You need to be like, come on, boys, let's work together. Let's drop these Norwegians. Here you go, mate. Here's your platform. Who do you want to have go with you on the bike?
Uh, I think I proved in Roth that I can bridge the gap myself. So not necessarily anyone.
I love it.
But if
Bike
people
course
are
record in
willing
Roth, mate. Done.
yeah.
Fantastic. Well, look, Magnus, we're both such huge fans. It was great to see you have this incredible result. We love the trajectory that you're taking in 2022. If people want to find out more,
do you want to give your sponsors a shout out?
yeah.
Yeah, so I'm this year I've started working with Scott bikes and head wheels, which is awesome. It's took some time for me to get a really good bike sponsor, but now I believe I have the best in the business. So that's huge thanks to them. Also, I'm lucky to be riding with the ceramic speed bearings, sailfish wetsuits, and then I have like a non-triathlon related uh, Danish company called Free Trailer that supports me also, and yeah, mom and dad, family.
And if people want to follow you, mate, where do they find you?
It's basically mostly on Instagram. I'm active. I'm still not the biggest SoMe influencer type yet, but it's something I have to learn for sure.
Do you get a bit of a bump after winning Roth? Have your numbers gone up a bit?
Yeah, my phone, it's actually broken now, but I don't think that's because of it, so I had to change it. But definitely, there has been a lot of attention after the race, so that's really great.
So we're going to see you. You're going to be at the PTO Championship
And
in
of
Edmonton.
course, another sponsor of mine is Fusion Apparel.
Yep.
Sponsor. We've worked quite closely leading into Texas along the Roth on improving my suit, so that has been a very fun.
I'll tell you something about the Fusion suits though. Racing in Elsinore, trying to tell the different Danish athletes apart was almost bloody impossible because you all wear the white top, black pants. It's like, is that no? There's no. It's impossible. So
everybody wears Fusion over there.
It's a Danish company, so they are pretty much everywhere here in Denmark.
Everybody, but Daniel's got the yellow top, and then everyone else has got the white top.
Exactly.
So we'll see you at the PTO Championship or PTO Tour in Edmonton, and then Kona. That's your year so far, looking like it.
Yeah. I'm still hoping to get Collins Cup.
And the Collins Cup, sorry. I think we're going to see
and also PTO Tour in Dallas. If it's, we'll see. But definitely Kona is the big one for me this year, and also I'm going to do 70.3 Worlds 3 weeks after that. So.
Fantastic. Magnus Ditlev, a pleasure as always, mate. Thank you very much.
Cheers,
Thank you
Magnus.
so much, guys. Thanks for having me.
And we're back. James Bale, what an athlete.
Yeah, it was a good chat. That I enjoy talking to Magnus. He's very calm and collected, but it's steely. I think is the term I'd use.
Cool as ice, mate. Cool as
Yeah, man.
ice.
Yeah. And I said in the interview, and I'll say it again. I love the fact that because he's so tall when he's running, he does look like I could keep up with him, but he's smashing a 2:40.22 marathon. It's remarkable how chilled he looks when he runs. I would be breathing out of my ass trying to keep up with him at that point.
I think Magnus is one of the athletes that it is so obvious when he's running well and he's not running well. Like there is such a significant change in
Yeah.
his form that there's no like. I don't think he can hide when he's suffering because he hunches over and
Yeah,
like,
I think the bigger you are, the bigger
Yeah.
your bigger your tells are, because if you're a slightly smaller athlete, you can probably whatever tell you've got is not as amplified as is on a taller person, and he's definitely got that that sort of moment where it becomes a little less fluid.
I genuinely think for a 24-year-old, that is one of that is an incredibly mature performance. Like it's not just that's not young brashness, that's not hot headedness. That is being measured, cool, calm, strategic, and like executing that race so well because he looked so good for the entirety of that run. And as he said a lot, it was very hard mentally to continue going. And I said it on Instagram this week, but I really think that he was like wise beyond his years in that race. And I think the gravity of that performance is going to start to sink in for people because, as we said, that's a 24-year-old equaling Jan Frodeno's course record. Like
Yeah,
that's
and the contrast between his sort of like his coming out party in Daytona when he was just hammering it on the front because it was just bike, and the maturity, like you say, to go, I've had one little dig to see if I could get away easy. I say easy, but to see if I could just get away without killing myself. They've come with me, so I'm not just going to kill myself at the front to try and get away and waste my legs. There's a maturity there, like you say.
yeah. No, again, amazing, and I really think it's going to change a lot of people's opinions about what's going to happen in Kona. And as we sort of said at the back end of it, like I think if Magnus can weaponize a few other like people with him, and they can really, really work together to put a gap into those Uber runners, we could see a very interesting race. Especially like 240. We thought it was maybe an aberration, or just because of the the 8-minute, 9-minute break on the side of the road. But 240 again, mate, like clockwork. Like not bad if you can just pump out 240s every time you do an Ironman. Hey, so
no, exactly that. It's there aren't many athletes that go sub 240 at the end of an Ironman.
Exactly.
And with a bike like his and the improvements he's got there to make on the swim, there's a lot to come.
Well, still on what happened in Roth, because there is something we haven't spoken about. And I got an article here from Kevin McKinnon at Triathlon Magazine Canada, and that is Frodeno still on track for Kona despite the Achilles tendon injury that forced him out of Challenge Roth. He has one final big goal in his career, and that is to again go for a win in Kona. His coach Dan Lorang said on the coverage. He said Frodo had agreed with Lorang and the rest of his team that if he felt the pain go to a 4 or 5 on a scale of 1 to 10, he would drop out of the race. He said he stuck to the plan. For sure, he felt something. It was nice to be out in the crowd and to see that he could still be there, but it's time to be clever, pull out and get ready for Kona. Earlier this week, Frodeno posted an update on his Instagram page, letting his fans know that according to his doctor, his Achilles tendon is going to be okay and he's still on track to go after a 4th win on the Big Island. He said, turns out I had pretty good arms and legs. The swim and the bike obviously went really, really well. Having to pull out on the run was tough. It was expected, but it was still one of those things when reality hits and you've got a good day and you're in the mix. It was a fantastic race that Magnus put together. Being part of it was pretty special. But in the long term, we decided that this was the best plan for the big goal of going to Kona. This morning, I drove to my surgeon, Casper. The tendon is fine. It's in good shape. It's not ready for a marathon or any crazy kind of workload, but we made a plan as to how we can get fit into the next 3, 4, 5 weeks to get back to 100% running load and then make full use of what seems to be good form. What do you think about the Frodeno situation, mate?
Yeah, good news. I mean, look, on the face of it, we've got to take what you're saying absolutely at face value. And if they'd made a decision internally within their team that if the pain got to a certain level, he'd pull out the race because Kona's more important, then they did exactly that. And that's a good thing. And it's good that we're hearing afterwards that the tendon's in a good place and that they're still aiming to be at Kona. So, all on face value, mate, I like what they're saying because I don't want to not see Frodeno race Kona this year, because I'd quite like to see him do well there. And if you're gonna enter a race like Roth, he's saying that they've looked at the tendon; it's not ready for a marathon distance. If it's not ready for a marathon distance now, it wasn't ready for a marathon distance on Sunday. So playing it sensible and just going there and pulling out when you feel that pain is a good call.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I mean I've said it a lot. I'm a big fan of what Frodeno does, and there was moments of like, what does this mean when it happened? Like, how bad is it? And then I heard, I think he said on the broadcast, that he thinks he's torn. He thought he torn it again or something. It's like, oh no, like, is this it? Like, are we actually seeing? Is it just a hurdle too high for him to overcome? One of the things that I loved about the broadcast, like one of the absolute highlights of the race for me, apart from the actual performance, was they got Jan into the commentary box with Sebastian Kienle.
Yeah,
together.
that was cool, eh? And Belinda just bowed out. Yeah.
Oh, that was phenomenal. Like those two, I mean, Sebastian Kienle is one of the best. Like just every time he was in the box, he was fantastic. But hearing those guys talk together about what was happening, and like it was really interesting to hear. Sebastian was saying at the start, and he's like, "No, I don't think he's no." And then it shows like that they're so in touch with what each other's doing and stuff. And
yeah, I think you could kind of. Obviously, I don't have the same level of insight that someone like Sebastian Kienle was, but looking at the way Jan was running, if you're dialed in like Seb is to competing against him and running against him, as soon as you see that sort of change in someone's physicality, then that's probably what triggered his brain to say like, it ain't happening today.
Yeah. No, but again, I think it was a really great race. I actually think the broadcast was quite good. Normally, we're quite critical of race broadcasts and stuff, but I watched the whole thing, mate, to be honest. Like, again, I think some of the ads I was a bit sick of by the end of it, but I think, again, Belinda Grange is so good in commentary, and when the racing was that compelling, it was a really good thing. So yeah, I really enjoyed Challenge Roth, and again, it almost makes me want to do an Ironman, mate, if I'm honest.
It's in that interview, it made me think that, mate, because in that interview we did with Magnus, when I said to him at the very start, I said, what, in terms of race experiences, not results or like where you are, but actually doing the distance, what do you prefer, a 70.3 or an Ironman? His answer of, well, they're just so different, made me go, Tim Ford, you've got to at least try one once, haven't you? Haven't you? Otherwise,
maybe.
Come on, man, just one. And when you do it, I'll come and do it, and at least you can kick my ass, which will make you feel better.
maybe. But again, I hope we see Frodeno in Kona. It would be a great way to see him sort of wrap up his career, because he's just a legend of the sport. But James Bale, speaking of legends of the sport, if you want to be a legend of the sport, you can go to mxendurance.com/podcast. We can sign up to support this podcast, keep us doing what we're doing. You can get us to races like Kona. You can get us to races like the Collins Cup, where we can create more content for you. If you sign up, you get goodies like bonus episodes. I recorded one with Chris recently that is now available. It is like the 26th one that we've got. If you sign up for 1 month, you get access to all of them, or you can sign up for a year. It's as little as $3.40 a month. We give you a whole other things. You get free hats, you get partner discounts, you get access to the community Discord. You can also join the Discord if you don't sign up. You just want to talk triathlon. You want to tell us, why do you keep calling in the sexy shepherdess? The Discord is the place to do it. I actually had somebody email me this week, James, and said that you should know that the Edinburgh Festival you mentioned last week wrapped up in like 2018 or something. And I was like, that is far too nerdy a statistic for me to care about, but I appreciate the effort. But that's mxendurance.com/podcast. If you want to get involved, James, if they want to find out other things about what we do, where do they need to go?
I can't remember what I said about Edinburgh. What did I say about Edinburgh?
I don't know either.
No. If you want to find out more about MX Endurance, head to mxendurance.com or search MX Endurance on Facebook or at MX Endurance on Twitter or Instagram. If you want to follow me, I'm at bale.james85 on Instagram, or you can follow Tim at T414 on Instagram. Jump onto iTunes, give the show a review. You can do it in the podcast app. It really helps the show out and is very easy. If you like what we're doing, tell a friend, help us grow. If you've got any suggestions, guests, comments, criticisms, send an email to podcast@mxendurance.com.
James Bale, a pleasure. Guys, I think it was a good one. I enjoyed chatting with Magnus. I always enjoyed talking with James Bale. Till next week, see you later.
Cheerio.